In this video, I'm putting two of the most popular cordless circular saws head-to-head, the DeWalt DCS391 and the Makita DSS611Z. Both are well-known models, widely used by tradespeople, carpenters, and serious DIYers. They both run on 18-volt platforms, both use brushed motors, and both aim to balance power, portability, and affordability. On paper, they seem very similar, but as always, the details reveal a lot more. We're going to take a deep dive into both saws, look at their construction, feel in the hand, usability, and who each one is really made for. Let's start with the DeWalt DCS391. This model has been around for a while. It was originally released in 2014, and it received a small upgrade in 2015, with the motor speed bumped from around 3,700 RPM to a much faster 5,150 RPM. That's one of the fastest spinning brushed motors in its category, and it tells you something about DeWalt's design priorities. This saw is clearly built for fast cuts. With the right blade, that high RPM translates into cleaner finishes and less splintering, especially on soft woods and sheet materials. Physically, the DeWalt is a very lightweight tool, especially considering its power. It weighs in at 2.9 to 3.2 kilograms with the battery, depending on the pack you use. And when you pick it up, it genuinely feels light. The magnesium baseplate keeps it rigid without adding bulk. The overall balance is good. It doesn't feel tail-heavy like some older cordless tools. It's comfortable to hold, with a nicely overmolded main handle and a practical front grip that lets you steer the saw confidently along your line. Now let's move to the Makita DSS611Z. This saw is a little older, released back in 2012, but it's still part of Makita's current lineup, and for good reason. It's lightweight, dependable, and fits seamlessly into the massive Makita LXT 18-volt ecosystem. Its motor spins at 3,700 RPM, which is slower than the DeWalt, but that's not necessarily a downside. A slightly slower speed with the right gearing and torque can actually help with control and reduce burning on hardwoods, especially during bevel cuts. So while DeWalt feels faster on paper, Makita might offer a steadier, smoother experience, depending on the material. In terms of weight, the Makita is almost identical to the DeWalt, between 2.9 to 3.2 kilograms, again depending on the battery. But the feel is very different. The Makita has a slimmer body and a slightly more compact profile. It's easier to maneuver in tighter spaces and feels just a little more agile. The main handle has a more vertical angle, and the trigger is noticeably lighter in tension, which some users will like, especially during extended use. Let's pause and talk about ergonomics, because here's where personal preference starts to matter. The DeWalt has a beefier, chunkier feel in the hand. It feels like a solid, aggressive tool that wants to move quickly through the cut. The Makita, on the other hand, feels more refined. The grips are narrower, and it almost feels like a smaller saw, even though both are built for 165mm blades. Makita's design language favors smooth edges, slightly curved surfaces, and fewer exposed bolts. DeWalt is a little more squared off, with bold styling and more pronounced metal and plastic transitions. When it comes to adjustments and markings, both saws offer similar features: depth adjustment, bevel tilt up to 50 degrees, and a locking mechanism to set your angle. DeWalt uses a larger, flatter bevel lever, which is very quick to unlock and relock. It's great if you're constantly adjusting your bevels on site. The markings are clean, but a little small. Makita's bevel mechanism is more traditional, slightly stiffer, with smaller levers, but it holds well once you set it. The markings are etched into the metal, and while they're harder to see, they're very precise. Neither tool feels especially premium in this area. They both get the job done, but Bosch, for example, does offer clearer bevel markings and more tactile adjustment feedback in its comparable model. One of the bigger differences comes in blade visibility. The DeWalt is a right blade saw, which means the blade sits on the right side of the tool. That's typical for American-style saws, and it means if you're right-handed, you don't have a direct line of sight to the blade. You're mostly following your guide mark or edge alignment by feel. The Makita is also a right blade saw, so on this point, they're the same. For users who prefer to see the blade directly, especially when following a pencil line, this might be a drawback. If you're used to a worm drive or a left blade saw, both of these models will require a bit of adjustment. Now let's take a look at the shoe and base plates. DeWalt's shoe is made of magnesium, which makes it lightweight and rigid, definitely a step up from pressed steel. The Makita also uses a die-cast base, and it's surprisingly solid for a tool at this price point. Both saws slide smoothly over wood, and both have base edge markings to help with lining up your cuts. However, neither one is guide rail compatible out of the box, which is important to know. If you're looking for high-precision straight cuts across sheet material, you'll need a separate rail-compatible model from either brand. When it comes to dust extraction, neither saw is especially advanced, but both do have dust ports. Makita's port is small and will likely need an adapter to work with standard shop vacs. DeWalt's dust port is a bit more accessible, but again, it's not optimized for extraction unless you rig up a system. For cleaner cutting environments or indoor use, both saws will benefit from third-party dust collection solutions. But you shouldn't expect Festool-level cleanliness here. One more difference worth pointing out is the blade brake, or lack thereof. Neither saw includes an electric brake, which is common in more premium or brushless models. That means after you let go of the trigger, the blade keeps spinning for a few seconds until it coasts to a stop. Not dangerous if you're used to it, but definitely something to be aware of if you're coming from a tool that stops instantly. It's also a reminder that both tools are entry-level in some respects. They offer reliability and quality, but without some of the high-end features you'd find in a more expensive or brushless model. Now let's talk about platforms and batteries. If you're already in the DeWalt XR 18-volt system, the DCS391 is a logical addition. It works with any DeWalt 18-volt battery pack, from compact 2Ah to the bigger 5Ah or FlexVolt options. Likewise, the Makita DSS611Z is part of the huge LXT 18-volt ecosystem, which is one of the broadest on the market. Everything from drills and drivers to radios and inflators shares the same batteries. So if you already have chargers and spares, that's a big cost saver. On price, the Makita DSS611Z comes in at about £116, while the DeWalt DCS391N XJ is also around the £116 to £130 mark, depending on the seller and what blade is included. That puts them in direct competition, which is why this comparison matters. You're likely choosing between these two if you want a reliable saw for light to medium work without spending too much. So in the end, which one should you choose? The Makita DSS611Z is lighter, simpler, and more refined. It feels great in the hand, especially if you value control, maneuverability, and lower fatigue during long sessions. It's a bit slower on paper, but smoother in operation, and it's very easy to use out of the box. For small builds, finish work, or someone already deep in the Makita system, it's a great option. The DeWalt DCS391 is more aggressive. It's faster, more powerful, and built for quicker cuts. It feels sturdier, bolder, and slightly more rugged. If you want speed, a high RPM motor, and a slightly more industrial look and feel, the DeWalt wins in those areas. And for users who already own XR tools, it makes a lot of sense to stay in that ecosystem. Neither saw is clearly better in every category. It really comes down to how you work, what you're cutting, and what kind of tool feel you prefer. If you like fast and bold, the DeWalt delivers. If you want light and precise, the Makita gives you that edge. Thanks for sticking with this detailed comparison. If you've used either of these tools, drop a comment below. What do you like? What do you wish was better? Real-world experience is always more valuable than spec sheets. And if you're curious how these two stack up against Bosch, be sure to check out the Bosch head-to-head video as well.